let's go to the war, and I want you to watch what the president had to say about the new supreme leader of Iran.
And we've heard that you want to meet with the new Ayatollah, the new supreme leader.
I don't want to meet, but if I did meet, I'd be honored to meet him. I'd like to see if we make a deal. But if we make a deal, it's possible that I would meet him. I'd be okay with it. I would say I'm not his favorite person. But with that being said, he's probably I don't know. He's probably a professional. In some circles, he has a very good reputation, actually. You know, sometimes some people say bad, but a lot of people say bad about me. It's totally false, of course.
The first question is, in what circles does Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei have a good reputation? Like your bowling league, PTA, I can't. So Nancy, make that make sense.
I'll try. I mean,
Please.
I'll remember that that this was someone he called a lightweight, someone whose father he killed, someone whose family members he killed, someone whose country he invaded and said his regime and that of his father needed to fall, and that the U.S. was ready to do anything to make that happen. Putting that all aside, I actually think that these kinds of comments hurt the U.S. in their negotiating, because, again, what it's signaling that the U.S. really wants a deal. And so it at a time when the Iranians are closing the strait and can sustain that for months, while the U.S., it's much harder to keep that strait closed. It creates a ticking time bomb in terms of the impact on the global economy. Right. So I think it hurts the deal itself that they're trying to reach, and also it goes against the stated objectives of this war and what Israel wanted to see out of this war, the U.S. partner during the invasion and the attacks itself.
Right. Steve, you and I have covered Middle East wars for 30 years. These latest round of comments from the president strike me as a kind of a guy who walks into a car dealership and says, "I'm not leaving here without a car." Yeah. And the salesmen are like, "Great, yeah, super. We could do that." I mean, where is this heading? And has he turned America's allies in the Middle East, not just Israel, but UAE and other Gulf allies, into kind of suckers here?
I mean, I'm glad you asked me where this is heading, because I know exactly, and I'm prepared here to tell you exactly where.
If we had commercials, I would say after the commercial break, Steve is going to tell us how the war ends.
Nice tease. You're a TV pro.
Yeah.
Look, I don't have a clue where this is heading. I mean, I think part of the problem is the president will say one thing one day and he'll say something entirely different the next day. You know, earlier this week he said that he couldn't care less about the negotiations at all. He was bored of them. He didn't care where they were going. He was sort of done with it. And then he had this, blow up with Benjamin Netanyahu, because he believes that Israel is threatening the success of the negotiations. So on 2 different days, he's saying 2 completely different things. And that, I think, is basically what we're seeing with his approach to the entire war. I mean, we're waging a war that he said today wasn't really a war. We're engaged in a ceasefire that's not actually a ceasefire. We wanted regime change. We haven't changed the regime, and now he wants to meet with the leader of the new regime, which is basically the same as the
Who's the
old
wounded
regime.
son of the previous leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incoherence all around, and we can try to make sense of it, but we're probably better off saying, you know what, it's just incoherence.
Yeah, let's talk about this Netanyahu-Trump relationship, because the one thing that, and Nancy, you know this as a Middle East correspondent, one thing an Israeli prime minister up for re-election can't be seen as is a sucker in his population. And it seems like Trump is yelling at Netanyahu now in a way that
he did,
he confirmed it in a way that no previous president ever spoke to Netanyahu. He's been around for a long time, obviously. What do you make of where this relationship is going, and how does this actually affect Netanyahu's own standing in his own country?
Well, as you know, the Israeli parliament dissolved itself in preparation for elections, so we know that they're coming up soon in a matter of weeks. And Netanyahu now finds himself in a position stuck between an American ally that wants to see this war end quickly and an Israeli population that wants to see resolution in these various Iranian-backed factions posing a threat to him. And so he's stuck in between. And I think you've seen in the polls in Israel itself the waning support. It's one of the reasons the parliament was dissolved. And so it is, again, another reason where I think it makes negotiations harder when you have this seemingly strong alliance being fractured over how to end the war that they had started together with such lofty aims.
Michael, I mean, Netanyahu put all of his chips on Trump. He kind of maybe the Democrats were leaving the Israel cause behind anyway, but he accelerated that.
Yeah.
Where do you think this heads?
Well, I think in the short term, it gives Iran more leverage because this is one of Iran's goals, to split these two powers away from each other. So why make a deal now? I mean, if you've got the leader of Israel and the leader of the United States fighting with each other over what's going on every day in Lebanon, like, why make a deal? There's a perfect situation for them to draw out. Netanyahu's been on thin ice with American administrations for, what, a decade? I mean, like
more.
There are more. I mean, like he is upset every president I've covered, and even before this Iran invasion, I was talking to White House officials who were constantly complaining about the bad behavior of Netanyahu, and so he was always walking this fine line. And I think, he's a survivor. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know Israeli politics very well, but I think it's safe to say that like the bipartisan unity behind supporting the U.S. relationship with Israel that has reigned for decades in the United States is basically reset now, and I don't see in the short term a clear path for it to be rebuilt. Definitely in the Democratic Party, and I think increasingly in the Republican Party.
Before we get to Maine oyster farming, I want to ask you, Nancy, one more question about the Iran war. Stockpiles of key weapons and munitions are very low. Iran is a third-tier adversary of the United States. How does this look right now to the rest of the world?
Well, it looks like that we are not the force that can go after multiple threats in Asia and Europe and the Middle East at the same time. For example, Ukraine is asking for more munitions, saying we desperately need more, and the U.S. can't provide them, can't give them a sort of guarantee of what we're going to provide. The munitions that the U.S. dispensed during the war will take years to replace and billions of dollars. They shot down drones that were thousands of dollars and take days or weeks to build. And that disparity is why the U.S. finds itself sort of limited in what it can do in terms of really being a power that can stand by allies on multiple parts of the world. And so it's a real problem, and I think a factor in the president's inability or unwillingness to go back and do more strikes, because the threats are not just to the munition stockpiles that we have, but for Gulf allies who have taken the brunt of Iran's response to U.S. strikes.
We'll talk about that in future shows, obviously. I want to go to Maine. Graham Plattner, putative Democratic nominee for Senate, has 99 problems. Let's start with one of them. Here he is with Chris Hayes talking about the small issue of the Nazi tattoo. Let's watch that.
The Times basically reported that they saw texts of hers in which she basically said that you had a, quote, Nazi tattoo, and she joked about how she's going to go volunteer for Collins. This is in August. How does she know it's a Nazi tattoo in August of last year, and you don't know it's a Nazi tattoo in August of last year?
Well, she certainly didn't send that text to me. So whoever she sent it to and was talking to, that's I can't say why, but I will say that I certainly didn't know. And the text messages she's sending to friends who may have recognized it, they didn't tell me that. So.
Annie.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Look, that's not a particularly satisfying answer to that question.
Well, you're the master of understatement.
Yeah, I cover the
My ex-girlfriend knows that my tattoo on my body is a Nazi tattoo, but I don't know that it's a Nazi tattoo. But her friends say that it's a Nazi tattoo because it's not working.
And she's to blame because she never told me.
Right.
She didn't tell me that it's a Nazi tattoo
her
that I told her was a Nazi. This is not flying.
No, it's not. Look, these are when there's a major event, like a major story that comes out like this, like the New York Times piece did, how a candidate responds to it in the ensuing, 24, 48, 72 hours is really important. And that was probably not his best moment in moving on from this. I mean, the thing to look for is, does he start losing support from Democrats? Do they stop giving him money? Do they stop appearing with him at events? And does more come out?
The Democrats need Susan Collins defeated to take the Senate. How panicked are the Democrats right now about this continuing, this tsunami of ridiculousness?
I think the key word there is continuing. If this continues, it's a serious problem. Plattner is this new breed of candidate whose whole appeal is, I'm not one of them, right? I come from a different world. I had PTSD. I drank a lot. I've done bad stuff, but I can talk straight to you. And I'm going to give it to you like it is in a different format. The problem is his credibility is core to that message. And when he's on Chris Hayes giving interviews like that and saying, yeah, I was drinking a lot, but I never grabbed anyone's arm, or things like that, if the drip continues, his credibility is going to be shot, and that's going to undermine his candidacy. I think if it drip does not continue, we're a long way from the election. And he is a pretty good candidate on the trail.
Yeah, I mean, I think what makes that problematic is this is the continuation, right? I mean, this story broke, 6, 8, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
So, and you had Democratic leaders, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and others, endorse him after the emergence of the initial story about this Nazi tattoo. It's not a Nazi-adjacent tattoo. It's not a Nazi-like tattoo. It's a Nazi tattoo. We know it's a Nazi tattoo. He's a military history buff. His initial denials that he didn't know what it was were preposterous, and they all chose to set those aside. Then there was this wave of Reddit posts that he made that suggested, man, we thought the Nazi thing was bad. These are bad too. And they said, we're doubling and tripling down. And they were doing that until just the last couple weeks.
Well, I think this is probably not the last time we'll be talking about Graham Plattner and his various excitements. Maine politics, never been this exciting. But we are going to have to leave it there for now. I want to thank our guests for joining me, and I want to thank you at home for watching us. We hope to see you again here next week for a special 1-hour edition of Washington Week, America, the Next 250, in front of a live studio audience. That's next Friday right here on PBS. I'm Jeffrey Goldberg. Good night from Washington.